Hello everyone, GoldenNova here. Our coverage of the core set Doom of Dimensions continues with another look at Yu-Gi-Oh's past. Without a future to pull from in the form of a running anime, the game has had to look back and pull inspiration from its iconic cards. We've seen them cook with Hungry Burger, Light and Darkness Dragon got a total makeover, even Metal Morph isn't safe from being brought out of retirement. But all of these cards pale in comparison to the lineage, the history of today's card. A whole theme has been brought into existence to prop it up, to give it the infrastructure needed to force people to play one of the oldest cards in the game's history, granting it power never before seen, and even some that has been joked about in hushed voices over the years. Today, we find out just how far single target spell and trap card removal can go. Today, we see what lengths the bean counters will go to if it means getting to add old pack filler to reprint sets. Today, we explore the power of the mystical space typhoon with Magnifistorming Explained. Real quick before we get started, one of the many themes to cover out of Doom of Dimensions is DDs, and I need your help to cover it. Ever since I started working on this channel full-time, my Patreon has had a goal where if I get 200 patrons, I would cover the theme, and now seems like as good a time as any to accomplish that goal. If you have $1 to spare each month, please consider supporting me over on Patreon or right here as a YouTube member. I'll be counting both, because it really does make a huge difference here. Not only do higher tiers get you early access to videos and parts of my Discord, it also means I'd have more money to hire editors, which would mean I'd have more time to do other outrageous things. It's no exaggeration that if just 1% of my audience gave a single dollar, I'd never have to worry about a video underperforming ever again, and I could invest in a lot more lore content. Turns out that stuff is pretty risky. Thank you all for your time, and now, let's get to the explaining. So, what's the deal with Magnifistorm? Well, there are a series of wind monsters that all care, in one way or another, about the card Mystical Space Typhoon, whether it's in the graveyard or it's being activated. And really quickly, for all of those that were born after the Great Clash with Upper Deck, Mystical Space Typhoon is a quick play spell card that targets a spell or trap card on the field and destroys that target, giving you the ability to answer any one spell or trap card at virtually any time. The benefits the associated monsters provide range from letting those monsters special summon themselves, to powerful removal, to monster effect activation negation. And all of this being tied to a card that destroys back row means you'll generally have the tools needed to deal with those cards while your monsters can deal with their monsters. See, Yu-Gi-Oh is like poetry, sometimes it rhymes. First, we have our level 3 monsters who all have a lot in common. If you have Mystical Space Typhoon in your grave, or your opponent controls no spell or trap cards, you can special summon this card from your hand. You can only do that once per turn each. This puts the opponent in a pretty funny situation where they want to have at least one spell or trap card on their field to keep you from getting your free summons, but that just gives you targets to hit with Mystical Space Typhoon. And of these 3 monsters, 2 of them are extremely similar. Magnifistorming Erdum is a beast monster with 1300 attack and 800 defense, and if normal or special summoned, you can add a Magnifistorm monster, except a copy of itself, or a Mystical Space Typhoon from your deck to your hand. Meanwhile, Magnifistorming Suen has 1600 attack and 400 defense, and if it's normal or special summoned, it can add a Magnifistorm spell or trap card from your deck to your hand, or a Mystical Space Typhoon, so you'll never be wanting for your signature card. And you'll need it to make the most of our last level 3 monster, Magala, who's a fairy monster with 500 attack and 1500 defense, but instead of having an on-summon effect, it's got a trigger one that looks for if a Magnifistorming quick play spell card or Mystical Space Typhoon is activated, letting you special summon any Magnifistorm monster from your deck with a different name from the monsters that you control, while you're locked into only special summoning wind monsters for the rest of the turn. It's a pretty devastating lock considering how bad the general wind pool is, but I'd be lying if I said that there hasn't been a concerted effort to fix that in recent years, so it may not be as debilitating as it might once have been. The upside is that we've got some magnificent monsters on the high end of things, so having access to them so easily is fantastic. And a bit of a spoiler coming up, but both of our level 3 monsters can tutor this up for us, so access is no issue, which ensures that these mystical winds will always be at your back. Next up, we have our higher leveled monsters, and we'll need to go into each one of those with a bit more detail. Magnifistorm Monsters is a level 6 winged beast monster with 2200 attack and 1200 defense that can't be destroyed by battle or card effects while your opponent controls no spell or trap cards. If a quick play spell card is activated except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand. And if this card is normal or special summoned, you can add a Magnifistorming card and or a mystical space typhoon from your deck and or grave to your hand. Also, you can't special summon for the rest of the turn except wind monsters. One wind lock in the archetype might have been something we could have pivoted around as needs be, but with two, we're gonna have to be pretty comfortable with the greenest of the entire card pool. That being said, this is like a super searcher. We get any on-theme card and an MST with the ability to pull from the graveyard if we need to, which means you're gonna want to be summoning this as often as possible to stay stocked up. And the fact that it can randomly just have destruction protection if you hit with enough spot removal is pretty hilarious. There's now a very real chance that Mystical Space Typhoon can nullify a Regeki, and that's beautiful. Magnifistorm Great Pyrophonics is a level 9 pyro monster with 3000 attack and 0 defense. And if a quick play spell card is activated except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand. Also, if a quick play spell card is activated except during the damage step, you can target up to 2 cards your opponent controls and shuffle them into the deck. Also, if Mystical Space Typhoon is activated while this card is in the grave, you can special summon this card. Wow, that's just a really solid boss monster. It doesn't have any wild protections to keep it around or to help shrug off interaction, but it's easy to deploy from the hand, keeps coming back as long as you have activations of Mystical Space Typhoons, and any quick play spell card also removes 2 cards from your opponent's field. And not by banishing them or destroying them, which might send them to places that your opponent could use them again. No, they get sent back to the deck where they may never be seen ever again. And honestly, I can't think of a better way to get hooked on phonics than this. Magnifistorm Vortex Beauty Valrune is a level 9 aqua monster with 0 attack and 3000 defense. Much like Great Pyrophonics, if a quick play spell card is activated except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand. And if a Mystical Space Typhoon is activated while this card is in your grave, you can special summon it. But where Phonics was here to remove threats already on the board, Valrune likes to take preventative measures instead. When your opponent activates a monster effect and you have Mystical Space Typhoon in your grave as a quick effect, you can negate that effect. Then if you have 2 or more Mystical Space Typhoons in your grave, you can destroy that monster. So you have a big wall that can regenerate itself with but a single MST activation, and if you have enough of those cards in the graveyard, you can destroy any monster whose effect your opponent wants to try and get into play. It may not be helpful when trying to close out games, but it'll certainly help put you in a position to take over the game, and that makes it a good card in my book. In fact, I'd say it's a pretty good card. Alright, that does it for the monsters. Now it's time for the spells and traps, and we've already got a group of them we can tackle all at once, because we basically have the same card 3 times in a row. They're all quick play spells, and they each have 2 modes, and while you can activate multiple copies of those cards per turn, you can't pick the same mode from that card more than once per turn. And the second mode on those cards is always to add a Mystical Space Typhoon from your deck or grave to your hand. Also, if they're destroyed by the effect of Mystical Space Typhoon, you can set them to your field. This has a number of use cases. Maybe you need to get MST into the graveyard, but your opponent has nothing to destroy. That means you'd have to target one of your own cards, but no worries, just activate one of your Magnifistorming quick play spell cards to put it onto the chain. Then, destroy it with the Mystical Space Typhoon on that same chain. This way you'll get the benefits of that quick play spell card while still destroying it with MST, which means you get to reset it and use it again on a following turn. It's honestly pretty slick. As for what each of the first modes are, Sight Trance lets you draw 2 cards, then you have to discard a Magnifistorm or quick play spell card, otherwise you have to discard your entire hand, great for sculpting the perfect hand of cards. Stanza Tribute adds a level 4 or lower Magnifistorm monster from your deck to your hand, helping you to get the right starters into your hand while also hinting at the existence of a future level 4 Magnifistorm. And Summoning Technique sends a Magnifistorm monster from your deck to the grave, setting up your Pyrophonics and Beauty Valrune to be summoned back. Each is very helpful in their own right for getting your plays off the ground, but the most important thing to note from among all of our spell and trap support is that they always have the same acronym as the spell card everything revolves around: MST. It's almost too beautiful for words. Magnifistorming Sovereign Tyranny is a continuous trap card that, once per turn, lets you target 3 quick play spell cards in your grave, including a Magnifistorming card, and applies the following effects in sequence. You shuffle them into the deck, then draw a card, and when monsters you control will gain 300 attack and defense for the rest of the turn. It also can be set to the field if destroyed by Mystical Space Typhoon, though considering how continuous cards work, you should probably wait for its effects to resolve before chaining MST to anything. But that's not all. Once per chain, when Mystical Space Typhoon is activated, you can target a face-up card your opponent controls and negate its effects. That's right, after all these years, after all the misunderstandings and teachable moments, the worst, or best outcome has finally come to pass. MST negates! I mean, technically the MST in question is Magnifistorming Sovereign Tyranny after seeing Mystical Space Typhoon activate, but it is still technically correct, and I'll take the best kind of correct any day of the week. Praise be to the long-running community in jokes. I wonder which one we can get them to make a card out of next. Alright, so that's all the Magnifistorm cards, but what do we do with them? Well, we've got removal and negation locked down, but not so much in the realm of attack power. We can't rely on the Great Pyre to resolve all of that for us, so we're going to have to scuttle through all the wind support out there, as well as digging up all the good quick play spell cards that were printed to help enable our high-leveled monsters. So what can we play to help them out? First up, it might do us some good to check and see what archetypes we can splash together with them. After all, with only 10 unique cards to their name, 11 if the Typhoon is involved, we can't really make a full deck out of them. So are there any winds that work well with us? Absolutely! Wind Witches are always looking for friends to pal around with, and get around our lack of strong attack monsters by singeing our opponent with a ton of burn damage. Harpy Ladies are also pretty fantastic. Not only do winged beasts have a great set of support all their own, they excel at dismantling our opponent's back row, either via their field spell Harpy's Hunting Ground, or taking them all out with Harpy's Feather Duster. You even have access to Harpy's Feather Storm if you don't want to deal with those pesky monster effects. Speedroids also love wind locks, and our glut of free monsters can certainly help with the synchro summoning aspect of things. We even have a ton of level 3s to pair with Decadenborg to make some rank 3s. Though to be fair, there aren't really many rank 3 wins that I would put into rotation. Totem Bird's pretty good though. Its spell and trap negation pairs well with all our monster negation. Levier the Sea Dragon is also pretty good for scooping up our banished monsters, but that doesn't really factor into our game plan, so I guess leave that on the back burner in case someone else decides to banish our monsters. A more devastating one though, considering we play a couple of level 9 monsters that just keep regenerating themselves, is Phantom Fortress Enter Blatnir. Overlaying Great Pyre and Valrune gives you a couple turns of bullying your opponent by banishing their stuff, which sounds super fun. And playing all these monsters gives us an excuse to run Moon Dance Ritual, which is one of the coolest pieces of tech out there in my humble opinion. For more general purpose wind support, Win the Wind Channeler can tutor up just about all of our monsters, with the only exception being Valrune. And if you have to discard either Valrune or Great Pyrophonics, well, it'll be right where you need them for Mystical Space Typhoon to come along and pluck them out of the grave. Summon Storm can get Crothia out of the hand in a pinch if they're stuck there, and can let our level 3 monsters jump out of our hand in case they get gummed up. And if you really want to ensure your opponent has no spell or trap cards to play with, look no further than Swift Birdman Joe, who is a giant Trunade if you tribute summon them with a wind monster. As for quick play spell stuff, we've got a surprising amount of support. The Forbidden line of cards are all very powerful, and you can bring in certain ones depending on what meta you're expecting to see. Want some more monster negation? Play Forbidden Chalice. Worried about spell or trap cards? Tech in those Forbidden Lances. And Forbidden Droplets is a one-size-fits-all approach that, admittedly, is a lot more costly, but you can search all of them with a little help from Condemned Witch. Heck, if you want to be extra cheeky, you can tag them out for Condemned Maiden to play one of them directly from your hand during the duel without setting it first. As for a silly tech pick, well, having quick play spell cards on hand helps to keep our game plan going. So what if we always had quick play spell cards? And what if they always had a huge impact on the field, and they drew us cards? And what if all those quick play spells were actually runics? True, none of the monsters associated with them are wind attribute, but that just means we lose one mode from our cards sometimes. Otherwise, we can sneak those monsters in before the lock gets established, and now you have a plethora of tools to help control the board until the perfect moment arises. Get the buckets out, folks, because this fountain is simply pouring with value, and you won't want to miss a drop. And that's all I've got to say about Magnifistorm. This is a nifty little theme that, despite being so intrinsically tied with an ancient spell, has their own special identity, and I kinda love them. Between a relatively simple game plan, a lot of redundancy, and some powerful interaction options, I can see this being a pretty strong rogue contender for some time to come. In fact, when it comes to Magnifistorms participating in competition, I think it's safe to say we'll be seeing many such tournaments. But now, I want to hear what you all have to say. Are Magnifistorms a mystical space age super weapon, or have the winds petered out on this one? And which one's your favorite? Me? I'm going for the burb. That right there is a good burb. Let me know your favorite down below, and if you haven't already, please be sure to like the video if you liked it, subscribe so you don't miss an episode, be sure to check out one of my videos in the sidebar to help me show up on your homepage, and be sure to share this video with somebody you know who loves Yu-Gi-Oh! It really does a lot to help me out. Today's episode is brought to you by Dragon Shield. Get the sleeves as strong as dragon scales and save 5% on your order by using the coupon code GoldenNova at checkout while helping out the channel. It was also brought to you by my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commander, Upstairs Media, Nebula Navigator's 3rd Dynasty, Ada Basilisk, Adam Zajdel, Ancient Wizard, Andrew Newman, Battle Axe, Charlie Mercury, Chibi Gohan, Christopher Fuss, Clockswork, Comrade Eric, Frankie, Garland Chaos, Green Knight, Great Big Pillock, Groog, Hair Bear, Harry the Ominous Benefactor, Iron Zero, Iskander 711, Carp, Marion Jamesy Picata, Mean King, Millennia Asta, Muse Clark, Neon Yaminair, Orozco 09096, Panther J, Bat Boos, Rebel King Lucifer, Red Eyes Jackalow, RJ the Jank Monarch, Sonic 21 Blast, The Critic of Innocence, Thievery Coast, and the Wizard Moose, Cosmic Crusaders Ally Vatnia, Animasta, and Thorak, A Random Pup, Blade Runner 1034, Blitzwolf, Brandon Guzman, Jazz Ghost, Christopher Fuss, again, Chris B, Cool Trainer Dark, Dr. Entity RIP, Eki Bullock, Eva Padilla, Herbal D, Julian Marquez, Kale the Dragon, Lobomaru 02, Manga Pages, Natiel Lee Alexander, Not Al Gore, Obsidian, Pombo, Rhyme Kairos, Rogue Wolf, Shizuki Nijimura, Simic Toadstool, Sir Knight JCB, Sphilia, Stepfin Huntsman, The Legendary Raven, The Queen of Time, The Gene, Tiger X2476, Tristan O'Meara, and Zaldreka, as well as all the lovely Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. If you'd like to help me in my journey to cover all of Yu-Gi-Oh's archetypes, get my videos early, be a part of these credits and other awesome perks, it would mean the world to me if you would check out the link to my Patreon in the description or consider joining as a YouTube member. And if you'd like to see more windy wastrels in action, check out this video where I cover Magispectors. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.